All right, so the next thing we're going to do is take our pivot arm and get it welded to the pivot housing there. All right, and that's going to weld on there about like that. And you can see it doesn't quite fit up on there good, and that's just because of the plasma cut edge. So you want to take this to your vise or clamp it on your bench or however you want to do it, and just work on getting this all squared up in there so that hugs up against there pretty closely. You want to leave a little bit of a gap so we can get some weld penetration in there, but it should be a little bit better than that. So we'll work on that here a little bit. And also want to mention, if you're not buying the kit, you know, you're going to have to get a piece of 3/4 inch flat bar that's 1.5 inches wide, and then, you know, using the dimensions in the plans, I believe this is a 1/2 inch in and 1 inch down, and this is 1.5 inches by 1 inch up. I'm sorry, no, 3/4 inch by 1 inch this way. Look at the plans, you'll see it there. And you'll have to get that cut however you can. If you have a bandsaw, that'd be a great way to do it. You know, work it in on both ways. If not, you could do this with a grinder and a cutoff disc. It just would take forever. You could also do it with a plasma cutter. If you have a plasma cutter that's big enough to cut through 3/4 inch material, you could whack that off and then come back and do the grinding on it. If you bought the kit, I cut this on my CNC plasma table, and it is the correct overall dimension. Just has a little bit of roughness and some unevenness on these surfaces where it's got the flame cut edge, and you just, you know, want to clean those up a little bit, and that's what we're going to do here. All right, so you saw we did a little prep and clean up there, getting ready to weld this. If you're gonna MIG weld it, I'd really suggest that you cover this up, put a piece of plate or something over the hole, because you definitely don't want to get any weld spatter down in the surface in there. That's going to be our, you know, bearing surface basically here, so you don't want to do that. I'm going to TIG weld this because this is going to end up being one that I'll sell as a complete unit, and you know, it just a lot easier and cleaner for me to do. But if you don't have a TIG welder, this can definitely be MIG welded. You just want to kind of eyeball this, get this centered up with the hole here so that you're centered up with the center of the pivot, and then you know, clamp it any way you can, and then get to welding it. So I'll get set up here and then bring the camera back while I'm doing the welding. All right, I ended up not welding this on camera just because no reason to. It's going to make the video longer. You guys have seen me weld a bunch of times, so we got that on there, and this guy fits in there like that, and then that's going to pivot around it. It's still hot from the welding, so we'll be on to the next step now. All right, next we're going to work on the fence and the table. And if you bought a kit, it's going to come with this 1/2 inch by 2 flat bar, 1/2 inch thick, 2 inches wide. If you didn't get the kit, it's actually 2.5 inches wide. If you didn't get the kit, you're gonna need to buy this. Again, this is angle iron, and it's 3/8 thick, and it is 3 inches by 3 inches. So this is gonna get mounted on here like that, and then this is gonna be adjustable back and forth depending on how thick the material is that you want to bend. Okay. All right, so if you're looking at the drawing, you can see that it's going to be 3/4 of an inch from each edge, and so I'm set at 3/4 of an inch on my combination square here, and I'm going to just put a mark here, and I'm just going to come down and put another one, because we're going to need that in a little bit. In fact, you can just connect these lines all together. We'll come and do that on the other side. So I don't know if that's showing up on the camera or not, but you should have a 3/4 inch line, or a line 3/4 inches in from each edge. Okay, so now we're gonna set this to 1/2 inch. So again, just look at your plans and you'll see the dimensions and everything drawn out on them. We're gonna come here and put a line at a 1/2 inch, and put one here, and then we're going to put one at, if you see on the plans, it's from this first hole to the center of the next hole is 1 inch. So we're going to put this on 1.5 inches, because we know it's going to be 1.5 inches from the edge. So this is an area you want to be fairly precise at, because you want your slots to be even. So now we have 4 holes, and those will become our 4 holes, and then we'll slot it together. So, but we're going to drill 2 holes first, and then we're going to overlay that on this and transfer our hole locations so that we get a really nice fit up between the 2 pieces. So we'll go drill these first 2 holes and then go from there. All right, so we are lined up here. We got those holes laid out, and I just went ahead and center punched those off camera. So we'll get all these 4 holes drilled, and then before we do the slotting, we will move over to and transfer our hole locations from this side to the table itself. All right. All right, we'll move over to the other side and get those drilled. All right, so we got our 4 holes drilled in there, and we'll go ahead and slot those out here in a little bit and finish drilling a couple more spots in there. But before I did that, I wanted to go ahead and transfer the holes through. Find a transfer punch that will work for that. Now, if you don't have a set of transfer punches, you can get these at Harbor Freight. I think they're like, I want to say they're like $15, you know, maybe $20. I don't really know the price of them, but they're not cheap. I mean, they're not expensive, I know that. So we'll just transfer these through here real quick. All right, we just want to put a little small mark on there, and we see our. And so now that you got that in there, what you want to do is use your combination square and you just want to draw a line referenced off the back edge. So I'm going to take the edge of my scribe and stick it in my mark I just made, and then flip it over that way so we have a better. So bring that up against that, and then just go ahead and scribe a line here. All right, we'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, if you look at the plans, it says that the hole needs to be 1.63 inches. 1.63 inches off of the bottom. So we're going to use our calipers here. And again, if you don't have these, you really should have some. If you're in a fabrication shop, you can get them at home at Harbor Freight as well for really not much money at all. So we're going to just scribe that at 1.63 inches from that edge. Same thing on this one. So now we transferred our holes through, and we scooted it up a little bit because it doesn't exactly transfer over. Yeah, I'm just getting my automatic center punch here, so we can go ahead and punch these. Okay. A lot of people don't know this, but if you don't get your center punch just right on the first try, you can tilt it in the direction it needs to go. Like if it needs to go that way a little bit, you just kind of, and that'll slide it up. And then you can get a couple more in there in the right spot once you get it moved. All right, so now we'll go drill those. All right, so now we got our main holes drilled. We want to come back and drill a couple more holes in the middle so we can remove that. Now this is a milling machine, and I could just mill that out with an end mill, and if you have a milling machine, you should certainly go ahead and do that. Most people, I think, that are buying this may not have one, so we're going to do it without one, just to show you how I would do it if I didn't have one. Slotting out a wide slot in this kind of material, you know, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So we'll go ahead and, actually for this, yeah, we'll go ahead and, for this we really don't need to center punch that. We're just going to get a smaller drill bit and drill a pilot all the way through. Something for our larger drill bit to follow. Because we don't have that, it's going to want to try to wander off onto that other, you know, to the joining hole there. Actually, see, that's what can happen if you don't have a good material and a hole for it to follow. It'll just walk off on you there like that. So we'll have to fix that. All right, so we got the makings of the slots made there. Now we just need to do a little grinding and a little filing, get that cleaned up, and we'll set the camera up and just kind of show you a little bit of that. All right, so we just got a die grinder here with a carbide burr in it, and we're just gonna kind of clean these up here. All right, we got it roughed out there, so we'll just do some hand work with a file here. All right, you see the last thing we did there is we got our slots made and got those filed out, and you know, those are not exactly perfect and could be made a lot easier, and honestly I'm not a guy that likes to do a lot of filing. If you take your time, you can get them looking really nice. I did not do that, so but they do work, and you know, the travel is good. They don't bind up or anything. So that moves back and forth. So that works good. The last step that we're gonna do, let me bring this in camera, is we're gonna, if you look at the plans, which I'll overlay on the screen, you'll notice that there's a little radius cut in on this edge here, and it's a little tricky on how they, the original, you know, Ox Tool Code design, how they had it laid out. So I'm gonna help with this a little bit. And I just, you know, made a little cheat here that'll, instead of having to convert radius to diameter and figure out a quarter off and how far this is from the edge, 0.54 and all that, we're going to make it a lot easier. So you're going to take your combination square and set it on 1/4 of an inch. Make a mark there. And then you're going to then set it on 3/4 of an inch and come from this edge all right, and then you're going to take your piece that you milled out. Actually, let's do it this way. That should go all the way across there. You're going to take this piece, it's going to have your radius correct on it, and you're going to set it where it catches the corner here and the corner there of the mark that we made. And that is it right there. So you want to hold that in place and just go ahead and draw, make you a line there for your radius. And that's it. We just need to notch that out, and that'll be a little notch for our pivot boss here to get welded in there. So you can take a grinder, you know, and grind on that and cut it out, and then just maybe do a little filing. Originally I took a 1.5 inch end mill and you know, just pushed it in there and created the radius. But since we're doing this as a DIY, we're going to do it with a grinder. Just take our cutoff wheel and cut off the corner there. Alright, now that we've ground our little relief in there, we just going to weld it up. I'm going to TIG weld this, but if you're doing it at home and MIG welding it, again, be sure to cover up any surfaces that could be exposed to the spatter and get it where you don't want it. Also, You can see I've got the top surface of this and this are clamped face down to the table, and you'll want to find you know, a workbench or a table, whatever you have in your shop that is the flattest thing possible, to make sure that both of these are perfectly flat at their surface. And then the nut that we welded into this guy should be facing up, so the nut's going to be up on the top side. So we'll go ahead and get set up and get it TIG welded. All right, well, the last operation that you're going to do here is make this thing right here. It's called a clamp plate, and you see a picture of it in your plans there. It's 2.5 inches wide, and it's 1/8 inch thick. And in the kit, I give you just a piece of 3-inch flat bar that's 3 inches square. So what you want to do is take a straight edge and make an X from corner to corner on both corners. Remember, when you have to actually allow room for the Sharpie, so you want to offset it, you know, and not hold it right on the corner. So when you draw your line, it is in the center from corner to corner. So just offset it a little bit to allow room for the Sharpie to go. So you have an X pattern there. Don't know if that's showing up in the camera. We're going to do a center punch in the center of it, and you're going to drill a 1/2 inch hole because we have a 7/16 bolt. Remember, we put the nut in the center of it. Again, this does not have to be perfect because we're going to lay our piece on top and trace it out and cut the excess to make it round. So we'll go punch a 1-inch hole, or I'm sorry, a 1/2 inch hole in this now. All right, so we are set up over this, and I'm going to put a 1/4 inch bit through it first, and then come back with a 1/2 inch. You could drill this in one motion if you wanted to. And you have a little bitty burr on the back of it to clean up, so we'll just knock that off and show you the next step. All right, so we've got this partially assembled now. You see we took our bolt and bolted that through from the bottom side, and now we just want to draw a line around this from the outside. It's bound up on there tight because the weld seam there, and I'll have to go and do a little bit of trimming on that, grinding on that to make that where it'll loosen up. That'll be easy to do. So when you're welding yours at home, when you come on the underside of it, just be careful, especially if you're MIG welding, you could leave some extra weld on there and cause it to bind up. All right, you see we got our circle drawn out on there. You just want to take your grinder and cut that out, or if you have a little porta band, you know, or any kind of bandsaw, you can cut it out on that. All right, well, we're off set up here. So we'll just see that's doing a test fit. I already put it on there once. You can see the lines on it. I think with the welding and all, it's you know, on here and here, create a little bit of distortion, and our once really good fit is not fitting quite as good. Hence the machine version with the bushing in it. You know, the bushing's already pre-fit on the inside. It's not quite fitting as good. So if you end up with that when you're putting yours together, it isn't a problem. What we're gonna do is just put some oil on this. And then there's our cap. I went ahead and cut that out. You can see it's not perfectly round, but for a DIY setup, it'll be perfect. So just want to put a little bit of oil on it. And go ahead and get it mounted together. And put our bolt in here. Bolt this on. All you really need is about a 1/2 inch on your bolt. So that's kind of tight, but after a couple of moves there, I can already feel it loosening up. And the oil mixing in with a little bit of movements, creating a kind of a lapping effect, you know, like with lapping compound. So this will kind of lap its way in once it's been moved back and forth a few times. Now it's not binding up at all. Really smooth. So what you want to do is take it back apart and clean it off, clean that oil off, because it's going to have some mixed in with some shavings and stuff where we lapped it in there. And see the brown shavings and all. Just clean that off, and then put some fresh oil back on, and then bolt it back on one final time. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to clean it off, put some good oil on it, and then we'll get it mounted over here in the vise and just, you know, bend a couple things on it, make sure we're good to go, and then that'll be it. You're ready. You're ready to bolt it up and start using it. All right, well, that concludes our video. We just got a little piece of 5/16 rod here. We got it back assembled, everything bolted up. And by the way, this is I'll put a link in your parts list for you, but I didn't include a handle with it because this would have really jacked up the shipping. The cost of it's not that much. You can go to Home Depot and pick this up. It's just black pipe, black plumbing pipe. And you see this boss I've got welded on here. You don't need that. That's for something else I was doing. So just in the longer the pipe, you know, the more leverage you can get, and the thicker the material you can bend. But we'll just bend up this 3/8 bar here real quick and show you what we got. Bent that up, no problem at all. All right, guys, hope you got something out of this. I hope you are able to build the kit without any issues. And if you have any questions, you know, along the way as you're putting it together, feel free to send me an email. And if we need to get on the phone, I'll give you my number. I'm happy to talk to you. All right, thanks, appreciate it.